Cool.
Hi, I'm Sophia Sargent here with Kevin Stone. We just spent an afternoon, we'll call it, here at press conferences at Gillette Stadium. I'm looking forward to this game, even though the morale is obviously low amongst New England
Very.
fans. Yeah, would you agree?
Yes, very. Look, Gerard Mayo talked today, and he first of all he took ownership of his comments regarding the team being soft. I think we all know you could kind of feel it in the room. It was awkward.
Hmm.
There's definitely a sense of him backtracking a little bit right now. And look, as a first year head coach, it's gonna happen. Like we all screw up. We all say something we probably shouldn't. I think what he said wasn't wrong, but he could have put it better.
Hmm.
And I think if you've talked to players, you talked to guys in the locker room today.
Absolutely.
I did as well. There's a sense of, look, we have to man up, but I've never been called soft before, so
Yeah.
there's definitely a sense of guys maybe wanting to have their coaches back, but not really sure where things stand right now.
Hmm.
There's some awkwardness in the locker room. I think you could feel that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think, I know we'll get to Drake May too, but
Yeah.
I think he brought up some great points because he was able to address some of his weaknesses, as well as,
Yes.
finding his spots with the veterans,
Yep.
with his leadership as quarterback. So, what were some things that you noticed about Drake and things that he said during his time on the
So
podium?
I tweeted this out, and I'm not sure if you felt the same way. His maturity for a 22-year-old is startling.
Unreal.
It is. Now, he talks extremely fast. As someone that talks fast, I know you do too.
Yes.
It's impressive how fast he talks. But just his demeanor, the way he talks about, kind of dealing with veterans and rookies at the same time, I'm blown away just by his maturity in general and his ability to, I guess, sort of lead on the fly already. You don't see that with a lot of rookies, especially a kid who was taken number 3 overall, but still has to learn, how to become a pro football player. You don't get that sense. You get that sense that he's already, the guy, the man in charge here. And again, I want to get your take on this
Yeah, yeah.
as well. But man, for a 22-year-old kid, 21-year-old, we were joking, you're older than he is.
Yeah.
And you're just out of college. So, but for his maturity and his ability to lead both on and off the field already, it's striking to me.
Yeah, it really blows my mind. And also, I think with such young players, social media plays a huge part in what they do, both
Yes.
on and off the field. And I've noticed that there were lots of comments about social media today in the locker room, mainly because of, Coach Mayo's comments,
Yep.
but also because of some incidences that have been happening with
Yeah.
the team and how they've been dealing with some losses.
So look, we all saw Jalen Polk put up the deuces on Instagram. I think it was. It might have been Twitter a couple of days ago. Keyshawn Booty, and you were in there with me for this
Mhm.
interview today. He was really interesting because he was asked, basically, how do you have young guys ignore social media? And he said, you really can't.
Mhm.
He said, I do personally, but you can't. And I think, and Gerard Mayo said the same thing. He said, you know what, guys are going to read social media. It's a very different sort of tone than Bill Belichick used to take,
Mhm.
where he would say, ignore the noise. These guys, they're preaching, ignore the noise, but they're not.
Yes.
Which is weird because, look, I get it, they're 21, 22, 23 years old. You can't ignore social media at this point. It's
Mhm.
impossible, especially as an NFL player today. But when you're 1-6, you have no choice. And I thought Keyshawn Booty, again, I want to get your take on this. I thought he was very kind of poignant in his remarks, saying, look, I don't give a damn
Mhm.
about what people are saying, but we know other guys are reading it and seeing it. So, look, it's a fine line, especially now when guys are on their phones. Again, we walk in there, guys are laying down on their phones.
TikTok is on,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
headphones
So-
are on, absolutely.
Right. So they're seeing everything, they're hearing everything, and maybe the most alarming thing is Mayo and the staff isn't. They're not necessarily saying shut it down, get rid of
Right.
it completely. They're encouraging it. Gerard
Mhm.
Mayo said today, and has continued to say, I want guys to use social media, and I want to use social media
Mhm.
as an avenue. That's not safe as a
Mhm.
football as an NFL head coach. So there's a fine line here for the team, just in terms of balancing who's talking, what they're talking about, and that's where things are going to get worse. I
Yeah.
think is if they do keep losing, and guys are given the green light to continue using social media, well, how ugly does it get?
Yeah.
What did you think of Booty today as well?
I appreciated his honesty, but at the same time, I got some mixed feelings about it after thinking because, I appreciate that he's young. I'm sure there's so much pressure all the time for any young player to be, criticized openly on social media and on TV too. There's two components,
Right.
and I'm sure people even do it to their faces, let's be honest. But Gerard Mayo did say, when I talk to the media, I talk to the media to talk to the players. And I thought that that was interesting because not only
I love it.
did Booty,
Yeah.
say he's not paying attention, but then, I went to Jacoby Brissett, who's been in the league for quite some time, and I was asking him about social media, and he was like, I don't pay attention, but how could you not after everything that has happened in the world that we live in and, and being replaced by the rookie currently? It's like it's part of the job, press. It's part of the job, and in a way that might have contributed to why Drake May is currently in, because fans want to see Drake May and they want to see the change, and they don't necessarily want to see wins, but they want to see steps in the right direction.
Right.
So I think all of it's really interesting, and as somebody who's 23, I absolutely sympathize with all of them in terms of social media, and there's no shame in admitting that you're viewing it.
No, and look, again, Bill Belichick is no longer here. And Gerard Mayo, actually, before we get too far ahead, he was asked about Belichick's comments today. As we all expected, he wasn't going there, nor can he. You can't be getting into a war with Bill Belichick through the media right now. That's the last thing Gerard Mayo needs. But going back to the social media, look, I get it. Mayo is not an older guy. He's like 40, whatever he is. He's grown up in a social media world as well. So he understands that, and I respect that fact that he wants guys to not totally get off of it, but as a head coach of an NFL team at 1-6, you got to set some parameters, if I could speak.
Yeah,
you need to set guidelines, and I don't think he's done a good job of that. We'll see what happens going forward, but it's a dangerous spot right now. Again, if you're winning, like he said today, if you're 6-1, none of this is being talked about.
Right.
So that's the key thing. If they win on Sunday, nobody cares what's being said on social media. So it's a fine line, like we keep saying. It's going to take some balance. But Keyshawn Booty also touched on Gerard Mayo saying that they were soft. And I found his comments sort of funny. Look, I've never been called soft. This is Booty talking. I've been called soft plenty of times in my life. But Booty was just like, I've never been called soft. But he also acknowledged it was a shot at the team. He knows it's not individualized.
Right.
I think that's huge for guys to understand, because, look, he's not calling individual players out. Maybe he is in meetings, in team meetings. I doubt that.
Sure.
He's really not in the spot to do that. But guys aren't necessarily... I think it was overblown. Yes, being called soft as a football player is the worst thing you can say. But guys understand what he meant, and guys want to prove that they are tougher than what they've shown. So I think that's been overblown a little bit this week. Again, just what were your thoughts on Booty's comments regarding the softness?
Well, I think it's interesting because Hunter Henry commented on this too,
Yes.
and this was a big takeaway for me. I know you're asking about Booty, but he said that they're going to take it as a challenge, which I think is really important because, regardless if that's a PR answer or not, the fact that he just put that out and he said it, to some degree, they're going to take that.
Yep.
So, I do think some of Booty's comments were, I don't know if bold is the right word, but he was very honest. And I think that, that is important, but it was, it was open, and, people are going to do with that what they will. And again, it just all comes back to the fact that social media has so much pressure. And I think that it's so easy to open your phone to Twitter if you just lost a game and tweet something and not think anything of it.
So you talked to Brendan Schooler about this as well.
I did.
What did he have to say?
So he, mainly he was saying that it's really important to not, because I did particularly touch on post-game going on Twitter and saying, hey, like, are you okay with posting your thoughts or your feelings or your opinions? And he was kind of like, no, that should stay in the locker room. That should be something that we deal with as a team. And I thought that was really, really important versus, Jacoby Brissett's perspective, which was like, oh, I don't post anything at all, which is fine. I think it's great. And I think, but everyone should be unified on that, which is what you're exactly saying.
That's where I go back to the guidelines but it's also hard. Again, you're telling grown men, hey, do this with your phones.
Exactly.
So it's tough. And look, I'm happy you talked to those two guys in particular because they're veterans.
Yes.
You know, they've been through it. They were around before Snapchat was around.
Mhm.
You know, stuff like that. So it's an
Yes.
interesting perspective. I know you'll have a story up on that
Absolutely.
as well, what they said about it. I never thought we'd be talking this much about social media in week 7 of the season. But did you have any other takeaways before we kind of wrap this up from today?
I mean, I just think overall it seems like they have a lot to conquer coming into the game
Yeah.
this weekend, and it's definitely bigger than, you know, just being on the field and dealing with formations and all of that at this point. So I just hope that, you know, they can somebody in the locker room, whether that's Drake May or the team as a whole, somebody can lead that and at least find some sort of peace or common ground or something where everybody can work as a team that they want to be to win in the future.
Well, again, I go back to Drake May's leadership. He was asked, you know, do you feel like you have to take on more of that role? He said it comes naturally.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Huge.
And again, most quarterbacks are probably going to say that, but for a 22-year-old kid to be in the spot that he's in right now, I think he is going to be that guy who ultimately kind of leads this team going forward. Now, do the veterans follow? That's the biggest question.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see what it's like here on Sunday, because I think if it turns ugly, this crowd is going to get on them very quickly. It's the first time they've been home, I believe, in 2 weeks, if I'm thinking right off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see. But yes, another very not contentious day down here, but there's a feeling down here. It's hard to
Yes.
explain.
It is.
There's something there, as you'd all expect for a 1-6 team. But yeah, Sunday's going to be interesting, to say the least.
I mean, even somebody in the media room when we were there earlier sitting through conferences was just, you know, greeting Gerard Mayo and Hunter Henry and Drake May when they came in, because the tension, it was like
Yeah.
when they come in, it's like that energy that you're saying, you could really cut it with a knife.
Yep.
So I'm definitely intrigued to see what happens this weekend. And, you know, as a local and native and diehard New England fan, as always, I'm going to keep my hopes high and just, you know, hope for the best possible outcome with what we have. And, you know, we'll go from there with the Jets this weekend.
For our sake, we just need better content anyway. So we need a win.
Right.
More than anything else, we need a win.
Something would be great.
Yes.
But yeah, well, thank you for joining us. I'm Sophia Sargent here reporting for New England Football Journal.